Deep in the jungles of Guatemala, the Maya built soaring cities of stone, cities that once echoed with chants, trade, and prophesy. For nearly 2,000 years, they charted the stars with precision greater than Europe's astronomers, carved histories into stone, and raised temples that pierced the clouds. What happened here? Did war bring them down? Was it famine, or the fury of the sky itself? Or did this empire, one of the most advanced of the ancient world, collapse from within? This is the mystery of the Maya, the empire that vanished overnight. Beneath the emerald canopy of Central America lies the story of one of humanity's most extraordinary civilizations, the ancient Maya. This is Mesoamerica, stretching from southern Mexico through Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and western El Salvador, a vast stage upon which the Maya built their world. From about 250 to 900 CE, the Maya rose to power. Their cities sparkled with limestone pyramids that scraped the sky, plazas alive with ceremony, and temples etched with stories in stone. They charted the movements of planets, developed one of the most sophisticated writing systems of the ancient world, and created a calendar so precise it could predict solar eclipses centuries in advance. Across their empire stood rival kingdoms, each a jewel of power, trade, and artistry. At their height, scholars estimate that over 2 million people lived in the Maya lowlands. Thriving farmers, astronomers, scribes, and kings who called themselves divine. And yet, between the 8th and 10th centuries CE, something unimaginable happened. The great southern cities were suddenly abandoned. Temples stood empty, while the jungle reclaimed the stone. This moment is now known as the classic Maya collapse, one of the greatest puzzles in archaeology. Long before the rise of Rome, or the founding of Athens, the jungles of Mesoamerica were already whispering with the voices of builders, astronomers, and kings. This is where the story of the Maya begins, not as an empire forged by conquest, but as a civilization woven together by faith. In the mists of prehistory, small farming villages began to dot the lowlands of what is now southern Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. Families cultivated maize, beans, and squash, the three sisters that would sustain generations. From these humble beginnings, the seeds of cities began to grow. By 1000 BCE, communities from the tropical wetlands of northern Guatemala, massive platforms, plazas, and pyramid temples towered over the rainforest canopy. These were not simple villages, they were the first great Maya cities. No armies marched here, no emperors proclaimed their rule. Instead, the Maya expanded through shared religion, trade, and the promise of divine knowledge. Rulers were priests, interpreters of the stars, mediators between gods and men. By the dawn of the Classic period, around 250 CE, the Maya world burst into its golden age. At Tikal, deep in the Guatemalan jungle, temples pierced the sky like mountains of limestone. Each structure was aligned with astronomical precision, the sunrise on equinoxes, the setting of Venus blending architecture and cosmic order. These cities were not isolated kingdoms. They were part of a web, a world of trade and alliances stretching hundreds of miles. Jade from the Montague River, obsidian from the highlands, salt from the Yucatan coast, each resource tied the Maya together. At the heart of every city stood its king, known as the Kuhul Ajau, the Holy Lord. His power was divine, inherited from the gods themselves. His duty is to maintain the balance of the cosmos through ritual, blood, and sacrifice. But as the cities grew, so did their ambition. The divine kings of the Classic period were not content to rule alone. They competed for glory, for tribute, for the favor of the gods. Yet the Maya spirit endured. New rulers rose, the city rebuilt. Tikal would return stronger than ever. This struggle between kings mirrored their cosmos, creation through destruction, renewal through death. Each victory was not merely political, it was sacred. The gods demanded balance. Across the land, stone scribes chronicled these cosmic wars. Glyphs recorded battles, captives, marriages, each act carved into eternity. The Maya believed that memory itself was divine. Beyond the palaces and temples, millions of Maya labored in fields carved from the jungle. They were the true strength of the civilization. Ingeniously, the Maya adapted to one of the world's most challenging environments: thin soils, heavy rainfall, and no major rivers. Each innovation allowed cities to expand, feeding tens of thousands of people. This mastery of ecology sustained their empire for centuries. But prosperity carried a price. As cities swelled, forests were cleared for farmland, limestone burned for plaster, and the delicate balance of the environment began to strain. For the Maya, faith was not separate from life. It was life itself. Every breath, every harvest, every sunrise was bound to the gods. They believed the world was born from sacrifice, and to keep it alive, blood had to flow a sacred offering from kings and queens who pierced their own flesh in ritual. In their sacred texts, like the Popol Vuh, preserved by their descendants in later centuries, the gods shaped humanity from maize dough, the same corn that sustained them. To eat was to honor creation itself. Every city had its sacred ball court, a place where ritual and sport merged. The game was life and death, a cosmic reenactment of the gods' struggle against darkness. To win or lose could mean sacrifice, a passage to the afterlife in glory. Temples rose higher and higher, painted red with cinnabar and decorated with masks of rain gods, serpents, and celestial beings. By the 8th century, the Maya world had reached a zenith unmatched in the Americas. Dozens of cities glowed across the lowlands, a constellation of stone and fire. In Copan, artists carved intricate stelae that chronicled royal lineage back through mythic time. In Palenque, King Pakal the Great built the Temple of the Inscriptions, his tomb aligned with the heavens. The Maya calendar tracked not only the turning of seasons, but the beating heart of the universe. Cycles of creation, destruction, and rebirth. Time itself was sacred, an endless wheel. But even in this golden age, something stirred beneath the surface. The gods were restless, the forests thinner, the rain less certain. The Maya had reached the summit of their achievements and, unknowingly, stood at the edge of decline. For centuries, the rains had come like clockwork, the life breath of maize and men. But now, they faltered. In lake beds and stalagmites, researchers have found traces of what the Maya once lived through decades of drought, beginning around AD 750 and striking again and again until the end of the Classic period. The climate shifted. Monsoon patterns weakened. Crops failed. Reservoirs dried to dust. The divine kings, once the voices of the gods, could no longer summon the rain. In Tikal, inscriptions ceased. In Copan, monuments were left unfinished. Temples that once echoed with prayers now stood in eerie silence. To the farmers who looked to the heavens, it must have felt as if the gods had turned away. As the rains failed, the kings turned upon one another. Across the Maya lowlands, competition for dwindling resources exploded into warfare. Cities once bound by trade and ceremony became rivals. Their alliances splintered. The murals of Bonampak, painted around the year 790 CE, show the terror of those days. Warriors in jaguar pelts, captives bound and bleeding, kings presiding over chaos. Each battle was a plea to the gods, each victory a desperate attempt to restore divine favor. But no victory brought the rains. No sacrifice restored the sky. As kingdoms fought, the very idea of kingship began to crumble. Inscriptions from the late 8th and 9th centuries show fewer royal monuments. The rituals of divine power, once lavish and precise, grew sparse. The faith of the people faltered. Priests bled themselves for empty heavens. The calendar turned, but the promise of renewal never came. We offered maize, and still the clouds do not come. What sin have we committed? For a civilization that saw itself as the center of creation, this silence was unbearable. One by one, the cities fell quiet. Within a century, the southern lowlands, once home to millions, were nearly empty. In their cosmology, time was cyclical birth and destruction, over and over. To them, the collapse may not have been an end, but a turning of the wheel. But for the people who lived it, it was a world undone. Without divine kings to intercede, faith fractured into local cults and village shrines. However, as the southern kingdoms fell, survivors began to move northward, toward the limestone plains of the Yucatan. There, new cities emerged: Uxmal, Mayapan, and the mighty Chichen Itza. These would become the heart of a new Maya world, but something had changed. The divine kingship was gone. Power now rested in councils of nobles and merchants. The old faiths mixed with new from Mexico's highlands came the feathered serpent, Kukulkan, joining the pantheon of the Maya gods. By the time the first Europeans arrived in the 16th century, many of the old cities had been reclaimed by the jungle. Great temples lay hidden beneath earth and roots, their stories waiting to be read once again. To the world beyond, it seemed as if an empire had vanished overnight. But beneath the green canopy, the Maya never truly disappeared. Their descendants still live speaking the languages, keeping the traditions, telling the stories of those who came before. The collapse was not a single night of destruction, but centuries of struggle. A slow unraveling of a civilization that had reached too high, too fast, for too long. The jungle remembered their greatness. The stones remembered their names, and the wind still whispers through their cities. The voices of kings, priests, and dreamers, who once ruled a world of stars. For generations, the collapse of the classic Maya stood as one of the great mysteries of human history. Why would a civilization so advanced in astronomy, architecture, mathematics, and art simply fade into the forest? Rainfall dropped by up to 40%. Crops withered. Reservoirs, once feats of engineering, ran dry. But drought alone was not enough to bring down a civilization. The Maya had long been altering their landscape and clearing forests for cities, lime plaster, and farmland. The brilliance of Maya engineering their terraces, canals, and fields could not keep pace with their own success. Their world had outgrown its environment. The Maya political system was both dazzling and brittle. Dozens of city-states ruled by divine kings, each bound by tribute and ritual. Their power rested not only on armies, but on the ability to speak to the gods to ensure rain, fertility, and cosmic order. When the rains failed, their legitimacy collapsed with them. Wars broke out, alliances fractured, and the cost of maintaining grandeur became unbearable. Trade routes that linked the lowlands to the highlands, salt, jade, obsidian, broke down. As commerce faltered, so too did the social glue that held the empire together. The collapse was not sudden. It was slow, uneven, and tragic city by city. Generation by generation, the Maya did not disappear. Their cities fell silent, but their people did not. However, they migrated north and west, adapted, rebuilt. And there was no single cause, no comet, no curse, no sudden apocalypse. The fall of the classic Maya was a multi-causal breakdown: climate, environment, politics and war, intertwined like the roots of the ceiba tree. The forest reclaimed their cities, but their legacy endures. In their descendants, their stories, and the warning their history still whispers, that no empire, however great, can stand forever against the silence of the rain. The story of the Maya is not just a tale of the past. It's a mirror held up to us. They built grand cities, mastered astronomy, engineered water systems, and thrived for centuries. But when the balance between humanity and nature broke, so did their world. Today, we stand at a similar threshold. Our forests are thinning, our climate shifts unpredictably. We face droughts, floods, and rising seas, the same elements that tested the Maya. The question is no longer about them. It's about us. What happens when our infrastructure fails us? When trust in our leaders cracks like old stone? When ecosystems collapse under human pressure? The Maya did not vanish. Their descendants still walk their ancestral lands, speaking the languages of their forebears. Their story endures as a warning and as wisdom. They remind us that civilization is not immortal. It must adapt or fade, and that every monument, no matter how tall, stands only as long as the earth beneath it endures. As we face our own climate crisis, we must ask ourselves, will we learn from their fall before the next monument falls silent? Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.